Chapter 10 Motion Study Tonsils. Dad thought the best way to deal with sickness in the family was simply to ignore it. "We don't have time for such nonsense," he said. "There are too many of us. A sick person drags down the performance of the entire group. You children come from sound pioneer stock. You've been given health, and it's your job to keep it. I don't want any excuses. I want you to stay well." Except for measles and whooping cough, we obeyed orders. Doctors' visits were so infrequent, we learned to identify them with mothers having a baby. Dad's mother, who lived with us for a while, had her own secret for warding off disease. Grandma Gilbert was born in Maine, where she said the seasons were winter, July, and August. She claimed to be an expert in combating cold weather and in avoiding head colds. Her secret, prophylaxis, was a white bag filled and saturated with camphor, which she kept hidden in her bosom. Grandma's bosom offered ample hiding space, not only for the camphor, but for her eyeglasses, her handkerchief, and if need be, for the bedspread she was crocheting. Each year, as soon as the first frost appeared, she made 12 identical white camphor-filled bags for each of us. "Mind what Grandma says, and wear these all the time," she told us. "Now, if you bring home a cold, it will be your own blessed fault, and I'll skin you alive." Grandma always was threatening to skin someone alive, or draw and quarter him, or scalp him like a red Indian, or spank him till his bottom blistered. Grandma averred she was a great believer in spare the rod and spoil the child. Her own personal rod was a branch from a lilac bush, which grew in the side lawn. She always kept a twig from this bush on the top of her dresser. "I declare you're going to catch it now," she would say. "Your mother won't spank you, and your father is too busy to spank you, but your grandma is going to spank you till your bottom blisters." Then she would swing the twig with vigor, which belied her years. Most of her swings were aimed so as to merely whistle harmlessly through the air. She'd land a few light licks on our legs, though, and since we didn't want to hurt her feelings, we'd scream and holler as if we were receiving the 21 lashes from a Spanish inquisitor. Sometimes she'd switch so vigorously at nothing that the twig would break. "Ah, you see, you were so bad that I had to break my whip on you. Now go right out into the yard and cut me another one for next time, a big, thick one that will hurt even more than this one. Go along now, march." On the infrequent occasions when one of us did become sick enough to stay in bed, Grandma and Dad thought the best treatment was the absent treatment. "A child abed mends best if left to himself," Grandma said, while Dad nodded approval. Mother said she agreed too, but then she proceeded to wait on the sick child hand and foot. "Here, darling, put my lovely bed jacket around your shoulders," Mother would tell the ailing one. "Here are some magazines and scissors and paste. Now how's that? I'm going down to the kitchen and fix you a tray. Then I'll be up and read to you." A cousin brought measles into the house, and all of us, except Martha, were stricken simultaneously. 2 big adjoining bedrooms upstairs were converted into hospital wards, one for the boys and the other for the girls. We suffered together for 2 or 3 miserable, feverish, itchy days, while Mother applied cocoa butter and ice packs. Dr. Burton, who had delivered most of us, said there was nothing to worry about. He was an outspoken man, and he and Dad understood each other. "I'll admit, Gilbreth, that your children don't get sick very often," Dr. Burton said, "but when they do, it messes up the public health statistics for the entire state of New Jersey." "How come, Mr. Bones?" Dad asked. "I have to turn in a report every week on the number of contagious diseases I handle. Ordinarily, I handle a couple of cases of measles a week. When I report that I had 11 cases in a single day, they're liable to quarantine the whole town of Montclair and close up every school in Essex County." "Well, they're probably exceptionally light cases," Dad said. "Pioneer stock, you know." "As far as I'm concerned, measles is measles, and they've got the measles." "Probably even pioneers got the measles," Dad said. "Probably so. Pioneers had tonsils, too, and so do your kids. Real ugly tonsils. They ought to come out." "I never had mine out." "Let me see them," Dr. Burton ordered. "There's nothing the matter with them." "For goodness sake, don't waste my time," said Dr. Burton. "Open your mouth and say ah." Dad opened his mouth and said ah. "I thought so," Dr. Burton nodded. "Yours ought to come out too. Should have had them taken out years ago. I don't expect you to admit it, but you have sore throats, don't you? You have one right this minute, haven't you?" "Nonsense," said Dad. "Never sick a day in my life." "Well, let yours stay in if you want. You're not hurting anybody but yourself, but you really should have the children's taken out." I'll talk it over with Lily, Dad promised. Once the fever from the measles had gone, we felt fine, although we still had to stay in bed. We sang songs, told continued stories, played spelling games and riddles, and had pillow fights. Dad spent considerable time with us, joining in the songs and all the games except pillow fights, which were illegal. He still believed in letting sick children alone, but with all of us sick, or all but Martha at any rate, he became so lonesome he couldn't stay away. He came into the wards one night after supper and took a chair over in a corner. We noticed that his face was covered with spots. "Daddy?" asked Anne. "What's the matter with you? You're all broken out in spots." "You're imagining things," said Dad, smirking. "I'm all right." "You've got the measles." "I'm all right," said Dad. "I can take it." "Daddy's got the measles! Daddy's got the measles!" Dad sat there grinning, but our shouts were enough to bring Grandma on the run. "What's the matter here?" she asked, and then to Dad, "Mercy sakes, Frank, you're covered with spots." "It's just a joke," Dad told his mother weakly. "Get yourself to bed. A young man your age ought to know better. Shame on you." Grandma fumbled down her dress and put on her glasses. She peered into Dad's face. "I declare, Frank Gilbreth," she told him, "sometimes I think you're more trouble than all of your children. Red ink, and you think it's a joke to scare a body half to death. Red ink." "A joke," Dad repeated. "Very funny," Grandma muttered as she stalked out of the room. "I'm splitting my sides." Dad sat there glumly. "Is it red ink, Daddy?" we asked, and we agreed with him that it was indeed a very good joke. "Is it? You really had us fooled." "You'll have to ask your Grandma," Dad sulked. "She's a very smart lady. She knows it all." Martha, who appeared immune to measles, nevertheless wasn't allowed to come into the wards. She couldn't go to school since the house was quarantined, and the week or two of being an only child made her so miserable she lost her appetite. Finally, she couldn't stand it any more and sneaked into the sick rooms to visit us. "You know you're not allowed in here," said Anne. "Do you want to get sick?" Martha burst into tears. "Yes," she sobbed. "Oh, yes." "Don't tell us you miss us." "Why, I should think it would be wonderful to have the whole downstairs to yourself, and to be able to have Mother and Daddy all by yourself at dinner." "Dad's no fun any more," said Mart. "He's nervous. He says the quiet at the table is driving him crazy." "Tell him that's not of general interest," said Ern. It was shortly after the measles epidemic that Dad started applying motion study to surgery to try and reduce the time required for certain operations. "Surgeons really aren't much different from skilled mechanics," Dad said, "except that they're not so skilled. If I can get to study their motions, I can speed them up. The speed of an operation often means the difference between life and death." At first the surgeons he approached weren't very cooperative. "I don't think it will work," one doctor told him. "We aren't dealing with machines, we're dealing with human beings. No two human beings are alike. So no set of motions could ever be used over and over again." "I know it will work," Dad insisted. "Just let me take some moving pictures of operations and I'll show you." Finally, he got permission to set up his movie equipment in an operating room. After the film was developed, he put it in the projector, which he kept in the parlor, and showed us what he had done. In the background was a cross-section screen and a big clock with Gilbreth written across its face, and a hand which made a full revolution every second. Each doctor and nurse was dressed in white and had a number on his cap to identify him. The patient was on the left, or on an operating table in the foreground. Off to the left, clad in a white sheet, was something that resembled a snow-covered Alp. When the Alp turned around, it had a stopwatch in its hand, and when it smiled at the camera, you could tell through the disguise that it was Dad. It seemed to us, watching the movie pictures, that the doctors did a rapid, business-like job of a complicated abdominal operation, but Dad, cranking the projector in back of us, kept hollering that it was Stupidity Incorporated. "Look at that boob," the doctor with number 3 on his cap, "watching what he's going to do now. Walk all the way around their operating table. Now see him reach way over there for that instrument, and then he decides that he doesn't want that one after all. He wants this one. He should call the instrument's name, and that nurse, number 6, she's his caddy. She should hand it to him. That's what she's there for. And look at his left hand dangling there at his side. Why doesn't he use it? He could work twice as fast." The result of the moving picture was that the surgeons involved managed to reduce their either time by 15%. Dad was far from satisfied. He explained that he needed to take moving pictures of 5 or 6 operations, all of the same type, so that he could sort out the good motions from the wasted motions. The trouble was that most patients refused to be photographed, and hospitals were afraid of lawsuits. Never mind, dear, Mother told him. I'm sure the opportunity will come along eventually for you to get all the pictures that you want. Dad said that he didn't like to wait, that when he started a project, he hated to put it aside and pick it up again piecemeal whenever he found a patient, hospital, and doctor who didn't object to photographs. Then an idea hit him, and he snapped his fingers. I know, he said. I've got it. Dr. Burton has been after me to have the kids' tonsils out. He says they really have to come out. We'll rig up an operating room in the laboratory here and take pictures of Burton. It seems sort of heartless to use the children as guinea pigs, Mother said doubtfully. It does for a fact, and I won't do it unless Burton says it's perfectly all right. If taking pictures is going to make him nervous or anything, we'll have the tonsils taken out without the motion study. Somehow or other, I can't imagine Dr. Burton being nervous, Mother said. Me either. I'm going to call him, and you know what? I feel a little guilty about this whole deal, so as a conscience balm, I'm going to let the old butcher take mine out too. I feel a little guilty about the whole deal too, said Mother, only thank goodness I had mine taken out when I was a girl. Dr. Burton agreed to do the job in front of a movie camera. I'll save you for the last, old pioneer, he told Dad. The best for the last. Since the first day I laid eyes on your great big beautiful tonsils, I knew I wouldn't be content until I got my hands on them. Stop drooling and put away your scalpel, you old flatterer, you, said Dad. I intend to be the last. I'll have mine out after the kids get better. Dr. Burton said he would start with Anne and go right down the ladder through Ernestine, Frank, Bill, and Lillian. Martha alone of the older children didn't need to have her tonsils out, the doctor said, and the children younger than Lillian could wait a while. The night before the mass operation, Martha was told she would sleep at the house of Dad's oldest sister, Aunt Anne. I don't want you underfoot, Dad informed her. The children who are going to have their tonsils out won't be able to have any supper tonight or breakfast in the morning. I don't want you around to lord it over them. Martha hadn't forgotten how we neglected her when she finally came down with the measles. She lorded it over us plenty before she finally departed. Aunt Anne always has apple pie for breakfast, she said, which we all knew to be perfectly true, except that sometimes it was blueberry instead of apple. She keeps a jar of doughnuts in the pantry, and she likes children to eat them. This, too, was unfortunately no more than the simple truth. Tomorrow morning, when you are awaiting the knife, I will be thinking of you. I shall try, if I'm not too full, to dedicate a doughnut to each of you. She rubbed her stomach with a circular motion and puffed out her cheeks horribly, as if she were chewing on a whole doughnut. She opened an imaginary doughnut jar and helped herself to another, which she rammed into her mouth. My goodness, Aunt Anne, she said, pretending that the lady was in the room. Those doughnuts are even more delicious than usual. Why don't you have another, Martha? Thanks, Aunt Anne. I believe I will. Why don't you take 2 or 3, Martha? I'm so full of apple pie, I don't know whether I could eat 2 more, Aunt Anne. But since it makes you happy to have people eat your cooking, I will do my best. Hope you choke, Martha dear, we told her. The next morning, the 5 of us selected to give our tonsils for motion study assembled in the parlor. As Martha had predicted, our stomachs were empty. They growled and rumbled. We could hear our beds being moved around upstairs, and we knew the wards were being set up again. In the laboratory, which adjoined the parlor, Dad, his movie cameraman, a nurse, and Dr. Burton were converting a desk into an operating table and setting up the cross-section background and lights. Dad came into the parlor, dressed like an Alp again. All right, Anne, come on. He thumped her on the back and smiled at the rest of us. There's nothing to it. It will be over in just a few minutes, and think of the fun we'll have looking at the movies and seeing how each of you looks when he's asleep. As he and Anne went out, we could see that his hands were trembling, sweat was beginning to pop through his white robe. Mother came in and sat with us. Dad had wanted her to watch the operations, but she said she couldn't. After a while, we heard Dad and a nurse walking heavily up the front stairs, and we knew Anne's operation was over, and she was being carried to bed. I know I'm next, and I won't say I'm not scared, Ernestine confided, but I'm so hungry all I can think of is Martha and that pie, the lucky dog. And doughnuts, said Bill, the lucky dog. Can we have pie and doughnuts after our operations? Lil asked Mother. If you want them, said Mother, who had had her tonsils out. Dad came into the room. His robe was dripping sweat now. It looked as if a spring thaw had come to the Alps. Nothing to it, he said, and I know we got some great movies. Anne slept just like a baby. All right, Ernestine girl, you're next. Let's go. I'm not hungry any more, she said. Now I'm just scared. A nurse put a napkin saturated with ether over Ern's nose. The last thing she remembered was Mr. Coggin, Dad's photographer, grinding away at the camera. He should be cranking at 2 revolutions a second, she thought. I'll count and see if he is. And 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the way Dad says to count seconds. You have to put the and in between the numbers to count at the right speed. And 1, and 2, and 3. She fell asleep. Dr. Burton peered into her mouth. My goodness, Gilbreth, he said, I told you I didn't want Martha. You haven't got Martha, Dad said. That's Ernestine. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Don't you think I know my own children? You must be mistaken, Dr. Burton insisted, looking at her carefully. There now, isn't that Martha? You mean to say you think I can't tell one child from another? I don't mean to say anything except that it isn't Martha. You've made a horrible mistake. We? Dad squealed. We? I've made no mistake. And I hope I'm wrong in imagining the sort of a mistake you've made. You see, all I know them by is their tonsils, said Dr. Burton. I thought these tonsils were Martha. They were the only pair that didn't have to come out. No, moaned Dad. Oh, no. And then, growing indignant, do you mean to tell me you knocked my little girl unconscious for no reason at all? It looks as if I did just that, Gilbreth. I'm sorry, but it's done. It was careless, but you do have an uncommon lot of them, and they all look just alike to me. All right, Burton, Dad said. Sorry I lost my temper. What do we do? I'm going to take them out anyway. They'd have to come out eventually at any rate, and the worst part of an operation is dreading it beforehand. She's done her dreading, and there's no use to make her do it twice. As Dr. Burton leaned over Ernestine, some reflex caused her to knee him in the mouth. Okay, Ernestine, if that's really your name, he muttered. I guess I deserved that. As it turned out, Ernestine's tonsils were recessed and bigger than the doctor had expected. It was a little messy to get at them, and Mr. Coggin, the movie cameraman, was sick in a wastebasket. Don't stop cranking, Dad shouted at him, or your tonsils will be next. I'll pull them out by the roots myself. Crank by jingo crank. Mr. Coggin cranked. When the operation was over, Dad and the nurse carried Ernestine upstairs. When Dad came in the parlor to get Frank, he told Mother to send someone over to Aunt Anne's for Martha. Apple pie, donuts or not, she's going to have her tonsils out, he said. I'm not going to go through another day like this one again in a hurry. Frank, Bill, and Lillian had their tonsils out. In that order. Then Martha arrived, bawling and kicking, full of pie and donuts. You said I didn't have to have my tonsils out, and I'm not going to have my tonsils out, she screamed at the doctor. Before he could get her on the desk, which served as the operating table, she kicked him in the stomach. The next time I come to your house, he said to Dad as soon as he could get his breath, I'm going to wear a chest protector and a catcher's mask. Then to the nurse, give some either to Martha, if that's really her name. Yes, I'm Martha, she yelled through the towel. You're making a mistake. I told you she was Martha, Dad said triumphantly. I know, Dr. Burton said. Let's not go into that again. She's Martha, but I've named her tonsils Ernestine. Open your mouth, Martha, you sweet child, and let me get Ernestine's tonsils out. Crank on, Mr. Coggin. Your film may be the first photographic record of a man slowly going berserk. All of us felt terribly sick that afternoon, but Martha was in agony. It's a shame, Grandma kept telling Martha, who was named for her and was her special pet. They shouldn't have let you eat all that stuff and then brought you back here for the butchering. I don't care whether it was the doctor's fault or your father's fault. I'd like to skin them both alive and then scalp them like red Indians. While we were recuperating, Dad spent considerable time with us, but minimized our discomforts and kept telling us we were just looking for sympathy. Don't tell me, he said. I saw the operations, didn't I? Why, there's only the little, tiniest cut at the back of your throat. I don't understand how you can do all the complaining. Don't you remember the story about the Spartan boy who kept his mouth shut while the fox was chewing on his vitals? It was partly because of our complaining and the desire to show us how the Spartan boy would have had his tonsils out that Dad decided to have only a local anesthetic for his operation. Mother, Grandma, and Dr. Burton all advised against it, but Dad wouldn't listen. Why does everyone want to make a mountain out of a molehill over such a minor operation? He said. I want to keep an eye on Dr. Burton and see that he doesn't mess up the job. The first day that we children were well enough to get up, Dad and Mother set out in the car for Dr. Burton's office. Mother had urged Dad to call a taxi. She didn't know how to drive, and she said Dad probably wouldn't feel like doing the driving on the way home, but Dad laughed at her qualms. We'll be back in about an hour, Dad called to us as he tested his 3 horns to make sure he was prepared for any emergency. Wait for lunch for us. I'm starving. You've got to hand it to him, Anne admitted as the Pierce Arrow bucked up Wayside Place. He's the bee's knees, all right. We were all scared to death before our operations, and look at him. He's looking forward to it. 2 hours later, a taxicab stopped in front of the house, and the driver jumped out and opened the door for his passengers. Then Mother emerged, pale and red-eyed. She and the driver helped a crumpled mass of moaning blue surge to alight. Dad's hat was rumpled and on sideways. His face was gray and sagging. He wasn't crying, but his eyes were watering. He couldn't speak, and he couldn't smile. "He sure got a load on all right, Mrs. Gilbreth," said the driver enviously. "And still early afternoon, too. Didn't even know he touched the stuff myself." We waited for the lightning to strike, but it didn't. The seriousness of Dad's condition may be adjudged by the fact that he contented himself with a withering look. "Keep a civil tongue in your head," said Mother in one of the sharpest speeches of her career. "He's deathly ill." Mother and Grandma helped Dad to his room. We could hear him moaning all the way downstairs. Mother told us all about it that night while Dad was snoring under the effects of sleeping pills. Mother had waited in Dr. Burton's anteroom while the tonsillectomy was being performed. Dad had felt wonderful while under the local anesthetic. When the operation was half over, he had come out into the anteroom, grinning and waving one tonsil and a pair of forceps. "One down and one to go, Lily," he had said, completely painless, just like rolling off a log. After what had seemed an interminable time, Dad came out into the waiting room again and reached for his hat and coat. He was still grinning, only not so wide as before. "That's that," he said, "almost painless. All right, boss, let's go. I'm still hungry." Then, as Mother watched, his high spirits faded and he began to fall to pieces. "I'm stabbed," he moaned. "I'm hemorrhaging. Burton, come here, quick. What have you done to me?" Dr. Burton came out of his office. It must have been to his credit that he was sincerely sympathetic. Dr. Burton had had his own tonsils out. "You'll be all right, old pioneer," he said. "You just had to have it the hard way." Dad obviously couldn't drive, so Mother had called the taxi. A man from the garage towed a foolish carriage home later that night. "I tried to drive it home," the garage man told Mother, "but I couldn't budge it. I got the engine running all right, but it just spit and bucked every time I put it in gear. Darndest thing I ever saw." "I don't think anyone but Mr. Gilbreth understands it," Mother said. Dad spent 2 weeks in bed, and it was the first time any of us remembered his being sick. He couldn't smoke, eat, or talk, but he could glare, and he glared at Bill for 2 full minutes when Bill asked him one afternoon if he had had his tonsils taken out like the Spartans used to have theirs removed. Dad didn't get his voice back until the very day that he finally got out of bed. He was lying there propped up on pillows, reading his official mail. There was a card from Mr. Coggin, the photographer. "Hate to tell you, Mr. Gilbreth, but none of the moving pictures came out. I forgot to take off the inside lens cap. I'm terribly sorry, Coggin. P.S. I quit." Dad threw off the covers and reached for his bathrobe. For the first time in 2 weeks, he spoke. "I'll track him down to the ends of the earth," he croaked. "I'll take a blunt button hook and pull his tonsils out by the jingoed roots, just like I promised him. He doesn't quit. He's fired."